All right, I want to welcome back our panel this morning. We start with White House correspondent Emerald Robinson, host of Stacy on the Right. Stacy Washington with us. Former Trump senior advisor Steve Cortez is here. And from CPAC in Orlando, the big event happening this weekend down in sunny Florida, political analyst Mark Halperin. Mark, quickly set the stage for us. CPAC, you had a story to tell about Donald Trump and you guys and something. If you can do that in under 7 minutes, that would be great.
I can do it quick. So Emerald asked if this was my first CPAC. It is not. It is also not Donald Trump's first CPAC. A decade ago, 2011, when people didn't take Donald Trump seriously as a presidential candidate, he spoke at CPAC. He was the best speaker, the best received speaker. And he talked about China and Mexico and Washington elites and trade and the economy and business experience, all the things that got him to the White House. People didn't take the speech seriously. They thought it was just Donald Trump having fun. I went on TV and said how important the speech was, what a force he would be if he did run. Of course, he chose not to run that time. He ran 4 years later, but it's what got me invited to Trump Tower to start to talk to Donald Trump about politics, because I lucked out and had the right sense that he had an understanding of America and what the American people and the Republican Party wanted well before he ran for president.
And Mark, as a gift to you, we have that soundbite right now. If we could play that, guys. It's Mark Halperin on in 2011. Oh, they couldn't find it, I guess, but we were looking for it. We were looking for it, Mark.
I'll get it for you. Trump watched it, and then he called me up and said, "Come on over to Trump Tower." So it's my first time talking to him, not at like a party, and it was my first time at Trump Tower. And,
right.
It got me again some insight into what would happen over the next 5 years.
All right, I'd love some. My producers, by the way, just panicked. They said, I don't think we have that. I'm just joking. I want to get your insight. The entire panel will go around the table here. Emerald, we'll start with you. I do not want to talk about the governor of New York, but he keeps giving us reason to talk about him. Here is Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York City, talking about the governor of New York State. Take a listen.
We need a full and independent investigation. I want to emphasize the word independent. Investigation by some individual or entity that is not compromised, is not something that is dominated by the governor's office, but an independent investigation, because this is just unacceptable.
All right, so we'll start with you, Emerald, then we'll go to Steve and Stacy and get some reaction here. But let's be clear, we know that Bill de Blasio hates Andrew Cuomo, but it stuns me that Bill de Blasio is now, he's like the white knight riding in, trying to ruin Andrew Cuomo. But ABC, NBC, CBS, all the major newscasts last night, Emerald, very little mention. I think CBS mentioned him briefly, but this is not a big story that anybody's covering.
Yeah, that I saw that. Well, the blood is in the water. And as you said, de Blasio doesn't like Cuomo anyway. And this is almost a gift to him from the New York governor. He's been waiting for a moment like this, I think.
Steve, imagine if this was Ron DeSantis. You think the coverage would be the same?
I think it'd be slightly different. That's for sure, Rob. You know, look, these two, de Blasio and Cuomo, they make Dumb and Dumber look competent. I mean, that is the real truth. And it would be comical if it weren't for the absolute tragic toll of the mismanagement from both of them, mainly Andrew Cuomo, but from both of them regarding the COVID virus. You know, if you look at these statistics, if New York State were a country in terms of per capita mortality, it would literally be the second worst country on earth, behind only New Jersey, right next door. And yet Cuomo was widely fawned over by corporate media as some sort of hero throughout the CCP virus saga, won an Emmy, won wide acclaim. The reality, of course, very different. Not only was he acting unethically, but perhaps acting criminally. So what he needs right now, I think, is not just PR, but he needs a probably criminal defense lawyer. And when even Bill de Blasio is willing to turn on you this publicly, I think it is a sign of just how tenuous Andrew Cuomo's position presently is.
Stacy, do you remember when Andrew Cuomo demanded that Brett Kavanaugh take a lie detector test during his confirmation process? I mean, how ironic now.
Yeah, I do. I remember that circus, and I remember the way Kavanaugh was treated and his wife crying. You know, it was such a low moment for us as a country. And I really don't think that publicly humiliating officials is the best way to go. But Andrew Cuomo presided over the deaths of over 15,000 Americans in his state because he did not govern properly. And accountability is something we've seen lacking on the left, and we have to have accountability here. And so the sexual harassment and the piling on of all of the different things at once is, the trap you set up for your enemy. He has tried so hard to take down President Trump and others who have been on the right. That same boulder that you set up to roll down on your enemy will actually roll down on you. And we're watching that in real time here. And I take no pleasure in it because elected officials are supposed to be set apart and called to a higher office, which is caring for the people who elected them. He has done a poor job here. He deserves what's coming, but it is still sad to watch.
Yeah. And Steve, you made the point. The numbers in New York are worse than any other state except for New Jersey, but New York still, 15,000 nursing home deaths. That's more deaths than 39 other states total. And that's just nursing home deaths in New York. It's unbelievable.
And by the way, Rob, when you mentioned Ron DeSantis in Florida, in comparison to Florida, which has been largely castigated, unfortunately, by corporate media,
right.
Florida's numbers actually are fantastic, particularly when you consider that Florida has by far the oldest population in the United States, and yet it rests in terms of per capita mortality. It's literally right smack in the middle of American states, which is remarkable. Considering the prevalence of elderly folks in the state of Florida. So if anything, we should be elevating and lauding Ron DeSantis at the same time that we're criticizing. Also, this is key, I think, regarding Cuomo. It's not as though he was just dealt a terrible hand that he couldn't manage. President Trump sent the naval ship, the HMS Comfort, to New York City. Under 200 people total. That's it. Were treated there.
Right.
Field hospitals were set up in Central Park, largely with federal assistance from President Trump.
Center.
They were almost completely unused. So, Rob, it's not like there was a lack of alternatives here.
Yeah.
This was a willful decision and just a deadly decision by Governor Cuomo. That's bad enough. And then he covered it up. And then they hid it from federal investigators. And that's where there's potential, not just bad judgment, but potential crime.
Emerald, jump in.
Can we just also take a moment to point out that what Cuomo did in New York is essentially what the nominee for the assistant secretary at the Health and Human Services Department, Rachel Levine, who had her hearing yesterday, essentially did. And she's going to be in a high position of power regarding Health and Human Services. And she did the same thing. And she pulled her mother out before doing it. So when we talk about accountability for Cuomo, look at the Biden administration, who they're putting forward to lead their policy related to COVID, essentially.
Yeah. And Rachel, I mean, this is the administration of identity politics. We've said that from the start. Mark, go ahead.
I know why Chris Cuomo didn't cover the fact that Andrew Cuomo is a bully who mishandled important aspects of the pandemic. I know why he didn't. Family first. But why the rest of the media has now taken 10 months to deal with the reality as opposed to the way Andrew Cuomo was covered all that time is just beyond me.
Yeah, and I just, the thing is, he's got a 57% approval rating still, the most recent poll in the state of New York. So it basically, because the media doesn't cover this stuff, the voters don't know. So when these Democratic polls come out, if they don't have the information, of course, they're going to be like, no, we've heard he's doing a great job, 57% approve. But this guy might be thrown out of office. I don't think he's getting reelected in 2022 either. I'm going to quick soundbite, then, Mark, I want a round of applause because Joe Biden is finally going to Texas. Here's Jen Psaki talking about who's going to join him. Doesn't sound like Ted Cruz is going to be on Air Force One. Take a listen.
Dr. Biden is traveling, of course, with us to Texas, with the president to Texas. There are some limitations on space available, so there are not members, I don't believe, I will double check on this, of any party traveling with the president to Texas. But again, he's going to be spending the day traveling with Governor Abbott and surveying the damage on the ground.
So we know Ted Cruz is at CPAC, Mark, but 14 days, and we don't have a lot of time, but 14 days is a long time to go to get yourself to Texas.
I read on my Twitter feed this morning that the Texas's other Republican Senator, John Cornyn, is going to fly down on Air Force One. So this is a pretty standard trip, and you and I have battled all week about this. I don't think it's too late to go. I don't think it matters. The people in Texas will be happy to see him, whether it's day 7 or day 14.
Almost 14 days since the start of that storm. All right, we can pick this back up at the top of the hour. Good stuff, panel. Appreciate it. We'll see you soon. When we